Live on a Thursday edition of the program, Merely Bo and the great Gerard Cherry with you along the ride for the next couple of hours. We will take a look at this playoff weekend, some monster games, some traditional matchups that has everybody excited. Certainly there's a lot of news going around the National Football League. We will get into all of that as well, but I did want to start with something that was part of both of our shows yesterday and that Jim and I were on until about 3:10, which is well into next level territory, Gerard, because of the Jim Schwartz press conference. I think one thing around here that I notice is we're big on did they win the press conference. And I'll be real honest with you, as someone who was part of the press, and you're part of the press now, you were a player obviously before that, the introductory press conference, that's for the fans, man. That's what it's for. There's nothing Jim Schwartz could have said yesterday schematically that's going to make anybody go, oh, well, that sorts all of it. That'll fix it right there. I mean, football fans are smarter now than they've ever been. They know Jim Schwartz wants to run a wide nine. They know historically that he has great defensive tackles on the interior. They know that currently we do not have those things. So they knew that before he sat down at that press conference yesterday. I think what you're looking for, what the fan base is looking for is this a guy that's got a little bit of fire? Does he have some accountability? Is he one of those guys who can lead? And I came away from that yesterday going, yeah, absolutely. He checks those boxes, Gerard. What'd you make of it?
Yeah, I may have similar thoughts and sentiments as well, Bo, because when I listened to that press conference, I walked away from experience saying, heck, you got me fired up. Where can I go get my pads and check in and see if Brad can hook me up and I'm ready to go? Because he had the right things to say and the way in which he went about it. He gave you nostalgia. He gave you his background. He gave you what he's been through and why he's qualified for the job and what's his foundation, his reference points, and talking about, hey, I got a binder from Nick Saban. Who's going to go against that? I was around Bill Belichick. As a matter of fact, I ate the guy's sandwich. And then when you get into actually how he ended the bad boy, and actually before I even go there, the reference to the railroad track and what that represents. And if you've ever been to training camp, how frustrated have you been when you got stuck behind that train trying to get to a parking spot and you can't get there, simply put, because the railroad track is in the way? So he knocked it out the park. You're exactly right in regards to who it's for. It is for the fan base. But there was something that he did say that I found very telling. And when we have situations where you make changes like a coordinator or even a head coach, you're looking for someone who's going to bring something different to the table than the guy that was previously there. And what he had to say in regards to the issues of accountability and holding guys accountable and his approach that, hey, I still have some fire and brimstone in me. I'm not completely over the top with it, but that's my approach, and I have to hold the best players accountable. We're looking for that. And I heard you say something earlier in the week about accountability and how it's all over the building, but we have to express that on the football field and the practice facility and outside of it as well. And that's a key thing. We have to mean what we say and say what we mean.
Yeah, and I think that there is I think there's a real sense of urgency for this organization. I think you look at your peers. I'm not sure if you've noticed this week or not, but if you look at the quarterbacks that are all still playing, the average age is 25 years of age. Dak Prescott is the elder statesman. He's 29. So they're two 23-year-olds playing right now, still playing in the NFL playoffs. In Purdy and Lawrence, the average age is 25. For the last 3 years, we've been best young roster in the NFL, or one of the best young rosters in the NFL, usually on that list. The Cleveland Browns need to morph from best young to it's right now. The prime is right now. Our best players are between the ages of 25 and 29, and the time to pay dividends on that is now. And what I needed to hear from Jim Schwartz, and I think it'll set the tone for really everybody in the organization, coaching staff, give everybody a little bit of a jolt, is like, man, this guy was at the mountaintop a couple of years ago, and he knows what it takes. And he's learned from some of the best. And we don't have a whole lot of time to go figure it out. It's now. It's got to be figured out right now. And I in the presser yesterday and talking to Jim, he knows what he signed up for here.
Right. And what he signed up for here, Bo, is something that is talented. But as we know, talent is not enough. And it goes back to that whole mantra of, you heard guys say it all the time, we're a very talented football team. But it's one thing to be a talented football team, but are you a team? And it seems to me that Jim, yes, he knows what he's signed up for, but he has to be encouraged. Now, granted, there are a couple spots where you say, what are you going to do in the wide nine with the defensive tackle situation? How are you going to shore that up? And I love the answer he gave in regards to the linebackers, because ultimately he's right in that, hey, if I can coach a guy up to play, I don't care how big he is, because I can tell you an undersized guy named Sam Mills, posthumous, is now in the NFL Hall of Fame for being an undersized linebacker, one of the first ones to do it. So you don't have to be 240 to 250 in order to get the job done, but obviously you have to get the job done. But the main thing that I look at as far as that whole age dynamic, I feel for the past couple of years, we've allowed that to be an excuse, the youth movement, as a reason why we haven't taken that next step, and that's not a good excuse at all, because ultimately that's not going to matter. So you're absolutely right. That window is closing, and it is time now for these young guys, especially on defense, because I'm of the opinion, Bo, I don't know if you agree with me or not, please tell me, but the offense played well enough to be playoff bound this year.
Yeah.
They did. Even with Jacoby being in there and represent the backup, I felt that they played well enough to put us in a situation where we could be in the playoffs. Can't say the same about the defense, and at times the special teams. So all those things, what do they have in common? They got young players on there, but that's no longer an excuse. We have to take that next step.
Everything you said is true. It is it's a move that is made for a team that feels like it's right there and is very, very close. You mentioned the defensive. That's been all we've talked about. And honestly, I told this story on the show yesterday when I was doing it with Jim. Like, I was convalescing on Tuesday and had a delivery come over, and one of the delivery guys recognized me and said, hey, who do you think we're going to do at defensive coordinator? And I went through kind of where we were, and he goes, he said, well, what about Schwartz? And I said, well, I love Jim Schwartz. I just don't know that the things that feel like requirements for him, do we have those things? In that we are not great at defensive tackle, and his best defenses historically have defensive tackles who are dudes, and we don't have that right now. And I said, so I think there might need to be a little bit of a roster overhaul. And sure enough, 2 hours later they signed him, so it shows what I know. But I do think that I picked up on that answer on linebackers too. Like, I can coach them all sorts of sizes. I just need them to play with a purpose and know what they're doing. I think the biggest thing, and there's no question that if job one on this team is a burner on offense, then job 1A or 1 equal is defensive line, and that's opposite Miles. That's defensive tackle. You need 2 big-time NFL players. You need an NFL defensive player who's an impact guy in the middle of the defensive line, and you need somebody opposite Miles on the other end. So Andrew Berry's got a lot on his wish list this offseason. But in talking to guys who played for Jim Schwartz, and I've done that in the several times in the last couple of days, the one constant thing that I keep hearing from them is you will not see guys on this defense next year pointing around going, that's you, that's you, that's you.
Oh, man.
Because he don't have it. They don't do that. It's simple. It's primarily man. There's not going to be a whole lot of confusion in terms of what's being asked on a given play. We're going to play fundamentally sound, and you're going to do your job, and that's it. And I thought, well, that's a step. That's a step in the right direction.
Yeah, it certainly is. It's a huge step in the right direction, because how many times did we look back on last year and you had guys in the same gap pointing at each other like, no, you were supposed to be there. No, you were supposed to be there. Or in the secondary, same issue. All right, my cover 4 responsibility, this is yours, is that. Or in blown coverages. And this idea of you can't – and it's a fine line, Bo, because from a player's perspective, you want guys to feel confident when they see something and anticipate something and make a play. But there's also, like I said, a fine line in that you don't want to have it be perceived as you're simply going rogue and you're trying to get yourself a stat to fulfill some type of Pro Bowl aspirations or some type of incentive, and that can't be the play either, because ultimately it comes back to we are a team. And unfortunately, too many times last year on the defensive side of the ball, you saw what we just described taking place, and you can have that take place, obviously, and say you're playing complementary winning football.
When you put the GM hat on, and I'm not going to ask you to name players because who the hell knows? I mean, this has all got to play out. You don't know how the free agent process is going to play out. But as you've had a couple of days to wrap your head around what Schwartz is going to want to do and the fit of the players who are here, and you put yourself in Andrew Berry's desk, what's the type of things he needs right away? What are the things that this defense lacks that it needs in order for this to work?
Well, first and foremost, you have to, and I think you actually have it on the roster now from a linebacker standpoint. It's just a matter of getting the right combination. And it needs to be an open competition, in my opinion, for who's most consistent, who's making plays, who's getting off blocks, who's filling the correct A, B, C gaps as a linebacker, who starts. And if they make a mistake, they get taken out. Same thing with the safety position as well. When you have run gap responsibility and you're at the line of scrimmage, you can't be making the same mistakes over and over again. So I think from a linebacker, we got big bodies and we got slender bodies will be the way I'll describe it. Now, I'm not of the opinion, unlike Coach Schwartz, that you could have 3 slender bodies on the football field at the same time at the linebacker position, because I think it makes the job too easy from a physical standpoint for offensive linemen to just put a big body on you and use that speed and size against you. So I think you have it from the linebacker position with Ragland, with Walker, if you sign him back, with JOK, with Fields, with Phillips. Those guys can do it, and Jones and Jordan as well. I think you have that there. Now let's go to the defensive tackle spot. That's where it gets interesting, because I think there we need to be a bit heavier. I think we do need to have bigger bodies in that spot. In that, granted, there were times where Bryant did good and there were times when Elliott did good, but unfortunately it was too inconsistent. Yeah. So I think there you have to be thinking, keep those guys in the fold, but how about some guys that weigh 315, 320 that happen to be defensive tackles? I want to see bigger, more intimidating bodies there, just so they don't get pushed around by the guards and tackles who are weighing 320 and we're at 300. And then you nailed it too with the wide receiver position. I think we're set there. What we truly need is a guy that can stretch the field, and the defense will actually fear that he'll catch the football, because when he does catch that football, all it's going to do is what? Open it up for Amari, open it up for Diamond Peoples-Jones, and certainly open it up for Nick Chubb.
Yeah, I think we all can, I do wonder, do they need a center fielder at safety if they're going to move Grant down closer? What does John look like back there? What does that kind of grow into through this offseason, through the spring? What does that look like? Do you need a true center field safety? Because it felt like Grant was certainly coming into his own as the season went along when he was up closer.
Sure.
Yeah, he was a dude. He looked like the guy they drafted, the guy at LSU. Right. You're like, okay, this is a guy, you count on him. But that was him playing, much more down and in and active, and that's where he's natural. And that's the same place John is natural. So they, the two of them, I don't know long term if that's a fit. So I'm interested to see what they do there. But there are just a couple of tweaks here and there, and then you can be a contender. The time to win is certainly now. I do think that it is critical. I don't, and I know they know this, and the price on these are it's always high. But you have to have a difference maker in some regard at defensive tackle, and or a difference maker opposite Miles. You can't be in a situation where that is not improved tremendously, because unfortunately for them in the draft, we're still we can't wait anymore on Tommy Togiai and Jordan Elliott. And you want to go to receive, you can't wait anymore on Anthony Schwartz. You can't wait on.
You have to move on.
It's done. It's win now. That's the approach of the whole organization. That's the Schwartz hire, all of it. So I think the same would be true of the roster, that we've drafted some of these guys. They haven't blossomed the way that you'd like, and yet it might be time to move on and get some people in here who can be difference makers.
And, Bo, you made me think of something with what you just said regarding the defensive end opposite of Miles situation.
Yeah.
My thought is, if I had a choice between would I rather have a guy opposite of Miles or someone more impactful in the middle, I'm still going to stick with the middle element of it. Okay. Because if you can have someone putting pressure up the middle, that's much more harder for a quarterback to deal with, and it just disrupts things. And at the same time, my thought is this on that guy on the outside. You are going to get one-on-one blocking attention on a regular basis due to the fact that Myles Garrett is way out yonder down this wide 9. Yeah. There's no excuse for you not to beat that one-on-one matchup every now and then. And even if you are going against a Conklin type or another Pro Bowl type, you still need to win that matchup more than you lose it, in my opinion, especially if you're getting one-on-one attention.
Yeah. No, it's where the league has – it's where it's been. The drops are so short, or it's out of the gun. The best way you can be disruptive is up the middle. And one thing that we had when we had Clowney, and we never really got to see it at its full torque this year with Winovich. But when we would go with Miles or Clowney in the middle and Winovich and Clowney on the outside – Miles in the middle can be really disruptive.
So it worked.
It worked. Yeah.
I called it amoeba. It worked.
It does work. And it was effective. So this opens a chance of possibilities. I think for the most part, though, if you're looking for a big theme from yesterday, if you're looking for a big theme from this organization and how quickly this all took place, the clock is ticking.
Right.
you're in a window right now. You're in a window in probably as competitive of an AFC in term that we've had. I mean, you think about this ascent of Jacksonville. At some point, the Chargers are going to be competently coached. Kansas City's not going anywhere. Buffalo's not going anywhere. Cincinnati's not going anywhere. Lamar's going to land somewhere.
Steelers are only going to get better.
Steelers are going to get better. Miami is going to – they were pretty dang good with Tua.
Right.
They're going to figure something out. So there's a lot in this AFC that you're going to try to navigate. I would argue that, certainly at the time when you were at the Patriots, at the very top with the Colts and the Patriots, or even sometimes when it was Colts or the Patriots and Steelers or whatever, that there might have been those two teams might have been slightly better. But in terms of the depth, Gerard, I don't know if we've ever seen an AFC like the one we have right now. And
I agree.
You want to thrust into that thing?
Yeah,
you better know what you're signing up for.
You got to come with it. And the thing that I do appreciate about yesterday's press conference, and I said before, and I'll be happy to reiterate it, whenever you have changes like this, you're going to see a polar opposite probably of the person that was once in charge. And that's pretty much what you're getting in this situation. You're getting the fire and some level of brimstone from Schwartz, even though I felt he kind of contained it and kept it in. But you're absolutely right. The AFC is extremely competitive. And think about this, Bo, for thought. What if Peyton decides to go to Denver?
Oh.
And we know Russ is capable of playing at a high level. So what if he goes there and we know Sean Payton's capable of coaching people to play at a high level? So that would only make it even more challenging for this division.
Sure. Oh, yeah, I mean, you add that to it, because if you went back to a year at the time of acquisition of Russell Wilson, you would have said, well, Denver could win the Super Bowl with Russell Wilson. Why can't they? They got everything else. They got all the weapons, Super Bowl caliber defense. There's no reason Denver can't take the next step. They get the right coach in there who can reach Russ and rejuvenate that a little bit. You're back. And so I think that's why there is a sense of urgency, the clock ticking, all of those things. I think there was a sense of urgency to this hire, to this pursuit. They wanted to make sure they got their guy. They did it. It's not a coincidence that they hired first. They interviewed a bunch of people and then made the first hire and moved it along. And I think that's because they all feel it, that next year is go time, and you are in the middle of a window to try to compete for a Lombardi and try to compete in an absolutely brutal AFC. We'll have a lot of fun over the course of the next couple hours of the program. We have some scores coming up on this special Thursday edition, and over-under coming up as well. It is a mailbag edition of Cleveland Browns Daily. Go ahead and tweet your questions at Browns_Daily. Use the hashtag AskCBD. Gerard and I will answer those in the 2 o'clock hour of the program. We've got a lot to get you set for. I mean, my man played with Brady. I can't wait to get his thoughts on that press conference we saw in down in Tampa on Monday night. We will get to that. Before we do all of that, though, I should tell you, Browns fans, tonight through midnight on February 9th, head to NFL.com/FedEx, the NFL's official Twitter handle, or the NFL mobile app, to cast your vote for Nick Chubb as the FedEx Ground Player of the Year. The 2002 FedEx Air and Ground NFL Players of the Year will be announced during the NFL Honors on February 9th. We will go around the NFL playoffs, just 4 games remaining this weekend, 2 and then 1. You know where we're at in this thing. This is when the men separate from the boys. We'll have some fun with that as this thing continues. We're off and running here on a Thursday edition, Cleveland Browns Daily, brought to you by Ballybet, coming soon to Ohio on 850 ESPN Cleveland.
fans are passionate. I've been very fortunate in Philadelphia. Okay, check. We had that. Detroit, yes. Buffalo. I've had some great stops that way. Tennessee. So you embrace that part of it, and I think that's that's an important part of our process, and that's an important part of what the organization goes through. And I feel a tremendous amount of responsibility to the fans here to get this right and to reward them.
Cleveland Browns Daily brought to you by Ballybet.
You guys ready?
To Ohio
Yep.
on 850 ESPN Cleveland.
You ready?
Yep.
You guys ready?
Yep.
You are up.
Bo Bishop, Gerard Cherry here with you. Cleveland Browns Daily brought to you by Ballybet, coming soon to Ohio on 850 ESPN Cleveland. Gerard, we've heard a lot of coaches and front office people say what Jim Schwartz just said right there, that it's time to the responsibility of it, that it's time for these fans, it's time to get it right. I mean, it's said a lot. Everybody has a full appreciation and respect of the history here. I do think that there is a time when that history eats them up. I think it does. I think we've seen it time and time again. I do think that it's important. And when I was talking to Jim about this yesterday, it's funny. Like, of course, Jim would. He knows everything like the back of his hand. He's got an encyclopedic memory of everything. He basically said exactly how the press conference would go for Schwartz. He predicted how it would go. He knew it would be emotional. He knew that coming back here and being in that dais and in that press room would be something that he had remembered. Obviously, it wasn't that one exactly, but you get the point. That it would be something that would hit a lot of nerves for him, and it did. Schwartz, having been here for this franchise being ripped out of this town, he got a first-hand seat, man, front row for something taken out of here. So now, what does that mean? Next football season, nothing. Right? Doesn't mean anything. It means a lot right now.
Though. Right.
It means a lot right now, and it makes us feel good. It's a warm blanket on a cold, although it's not that cold out there today, on a cold January night, right? It makes you feel warm and fuzzy, but the reality is none of it's going to matter next year. All that goes out the window, and it's just going to be, can you put your guys in the best position to succeed, to play complementary football to your offense, which is something that hasn't happened. And if he can do that, then waking up the echoes and all that stuff, it all will happen.
Yeah, certainly, because you're absolutely right, Bo, because if the season starts out and say the opener is against the Pittsburgh Steelers and we lose 35-0, nothing he said is going to matter at all. So we get that. But in this time of the season, why not have hope? Because that's all we have right now is hope. We're watching other teams play in the playoffs, and teams are definitely separating. The cream is rising to the top, obviously. But right now, for us, we need a message that gives us the idea that we have someone in place who's going to call attention to the idea that the guys, especially on the defensive side of the ball, need to be playing at a higher level based upon the talent quotient that they have. So I'm all in favor of hearing that message. It's obviously going to be much more challenging to put that message into practice because there may be some guys on that defense right now as we speak, Bo, who will be opposed to the idea of giving more than what they've already given, thinking that, hey, I do my job, I'm compensated for it, and that's enough. And you've heard me say this before.
Oh, yeah.
Just doing your job is not enough in the National Football League. Yeah, you get paid a check and you collect a large sum of money on a weekly basis, and more power to you for that. But it has to be more than just the money. So if we have a guy in the place who can get guys to buy into this idea that, hey, that guy next to you, that guy on the other side of the room is in it with you, and that they can build some sense of camaraderie with that, and understanding that, hey, we have an opportunity to do something great and not just put it out as a bullet point that, yeah, we want to be a top 5 defense because that's the message that everyone wants to send, but actually bought it to the idea of what it takes to get there, and they're willing to listen and follow, then you have something. But we will not know that until training camp starts. Heck, OTAs start. Yeah. Training camp starts, and then the actual season starts. But right now, I'm going to enjoy the fact that we have a premier storyteller, a premier orator at the defensive coordinator position. Because what he did yesterday, Bo, was a work of art.
Was that not refreshing, man? I mean, just to tell a yarn, spin it. I mean, it goes so far. Like, it's just it was beautiful. It was fun. It was a fun listen, really enjoyable listen. I think of the one guy who could really benefit, as you were talking about, some of the traits that he has and how demanding he has and some of the things that he said. I thought of Denzel Ward. Denzel Ward is an incredible mirror at corner, and he's been one of the better coverage corners in the league. But that next step to being like a dude, like top of the sport,
a Revis type.
That's right, Revis Island, one of those type of guys. In order to do that, does he have the potential to unlock that? Yes, I definitely think he has the potential to unlock it. But how do you get it out of him? And I think back to his time at Ohio State, and I think about the position coaches he had, whether it was Kerry Combs, but most especially his defensive coordinator, Luke Fickell. And that was, Luke came up with Mike Vrabel, and they coached together early on that staff at Ohio State. There was an accountability that was, boy, you were held to a high standard. And they had a very, Urban's this way, like very Saban, probably very Belichickian in terms of even when you win, it sucks. Right?
Like yes, exactly. Yep.
You win, and it's like, well, why didn't we win by more? You did this, 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 and this. What were you thinking here? Like, that was their approach. I could see Denzel Ward thriving in this. I really could.
Yeah, and it would be the better form, because if you want to give Denzel, and you're right, from the moment he stepped on the football field, and I saw him covering Antonio Brown at the peak of Antonio Brown being Antonio Brown, the good receiver, Denzel shut him down and gave up one TD, which was a perfect pass and catch. So I was like, okay, this kid can play. And he ended up being a Pro Bowl caliber football player from that point on. But if I was to give one critique to Denzel, I would say the following. If you want to take that next step, if you were going to have to find a way, though if you're hurt, I get that you are showing by example, your teammates, that you are the hardest working individual on this football team. And that you are a guy who's going to pay the price on a daily basis. Because if you do that, and if you do take on that approach, you will find yourself getting lauded as one of the best in the business. And the ability is there.
Yeah.
The desire has to be awakened to get to that place and not just rest on the fact that I'm really good. Do you want to be the best ever? He has the potential to be in that conversation. The question becomes, does he want to be in that conversation, Bo?
The thing that you just laid out for Denzel, and I think it applies, kind of across with a lot of our guys, is a lot of them have established being really good, but it's that next step to great.
Right.
You think about that step Joe hit. You played with Tom, hit it early on, long time ago. But like, all right, I'm really good, but now we're talking gold jacket. Like, you can start to lay the groundwork for gold jacket, but at some point you got to bust through that. And maybe Schwartz can be somebody that can kind of mine some of that with some of our guys. We'll see, but I'm with you. It was world class orator. That's perfect. That's exactly what it was. It was a great storyteller, certainly from Jim yesterday, and excited to see what he does on the field. This was from CBS Sports, Gerard. I'm going to go through this. This is their biggest hurdles for every NFL playoff contender. All right.
Okay.
So let's start. Let's go in chronological order. So the first game tomorrow is Kansas City and Jacksonville. Which of these is a bigger concern for you? Kansas City's concern, according to CBS Sports in their NFL preview, will the defense provide enough support? Conversely, Jacksonville's, did they already hit their emotional peak? Which is more troubling?
I would say the emotional peak part will not be a problem. If anything, I would say for Kansas City, will the defense come to play? Because if the defense comes to play, I don't see how they lose this game to the Jaguars. And the reason why I dismiss the whole emotional peak part, you're in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And if you're Jacksonville, what do you have to lose? You weren't even supposed to be at this point in place in time that you are right now, sir. You are well ahead of schedule. Go get the experience, embrace the challenge. There's no pressure on you because no one's, first of all, anticipating you're going to be winning this football game. And like I said, you're not even supposed to be in the playoffs right now. It should be the Tennessee Titans representing the AFC South, not the Jacksonville last place last year Jaguars, but they find themselves here. So if anything, I'm looking at the Chiefs, Bo, and I'm saying the defense, that has always been a question mark. You guys are so disrespected, so much of an afterthought for most people when they talk about your football team. Are you going to rise to the occasion? And it's quietly, I think they've been playing pretty good of late.
Yeah, they have been. The one thing I will say about, I think you're right on Jacksonville, it's all house money for them. The one thing for Kansas City is, like, don't give Lawrence belief because he showed what can happen if he gets a little of it. I can't believe that kid didn't break. 4 interceptions and a half, Gerard.
Mm-hmm.
Come on. How does that not break you?
Right.
That was
That's
unbelievable.
what happens when you have great coaching. Guy can explain it to you. Here's what you need to do. Settle down. And that was masterful job on the part of Peterson to pull that caper off. But, I mean, I don't even want to bring the Chargers into the conversation, though. But all it takes is you running the football.
Oh, my
I mean,
God, just a little
on.
bit. I mean, the times they snapped it with 20 seconds on the clock, like
Why? I mean, that's just
awful.
arrogance, right?
Yeah, it is. It's just – or ignorance, one of the two.
Or one of the two, both.
Lethal combination of them both, right? The Giants, they say, can Wink Martindale match Brian Daboll and Mike Kafka? So that is the Giants' question. For the Eagles, what exactly is Jalen Hurts' status? I lean on this one. I like Philly. I think this game could be ultra competitive, but we haven't seen Hurts all the way back.
Yeah. And that last game in which he played to shore up the number 1 seed, it was the most impressive outing in the last 3 games. If you think about the Eagles, it's almost like they ran out of steam coming down to the end of the wire. And here's what I know from experience. You want, even if your quarterback's out, you want to play your best football at the end, going into the playoffs with the momentum behind you, even if you have that week off from the bye standpoint. So I don't think the Giants will beat the Eagles because ultimately I just think the Eagles are a better football team. But at the same time, I'm kind of hesitant to say that, Bo. The reason why is I'm a believer that Jones is a new quarterback, that he's a new man.
I agree with you 1,000%.
What in the world took place there?
Well, it's funny. You're watching Sunday night, or the Sunday night. It was a Sunday night game, and Jason Garrett goes, "My man DJ," and I'm like, "Man, you almost ruined him. What do you mean, your man DJ?
My man,
like,
right?
Dable resurrected. He was a scrap heap.
Yes,
he don't look like a scrap heap anymore.
Right, he was designated for what they say in baseball, designated for assignment.
Right,
he was designated for a backup quarterback.
Like, I don't know that they got something there. That Giants team, I would not shock me at all. That would not. All right, let's move to the Sunday games. The early one, the 3 o'clock. Boy, I love these times. The 3 o'clock game, and they're 3 and 6:30. How beautiful is that? The 3 o'clock game is Buffalo and Cincinnati. Buffalo's big question, according to Cody Benjamin here at CBS, can Josh Allen protect the football? Cincinnati's, can the offensive line survive another loss? Boy, these are both. This
right
is that's the whole game right there, isn't it, for that one?
He nailed it, and I can already answer one of them. Josh Allen never protects the football. He's awaiting interception thrower every moment that he steps on the football field because that's just how he plays the game. He's that gunslinger mentality, and you need that confidence in you, but you assume he's going to give you 1 or 2 opportunities. Bill used to say this all the time about certain quarterbacks, in particular Ben Roethlisberger. He's going to give you 1 or 2 chances every game, and lo and behold, Josh Allen falls in that same paradigm as well. But I'm looking at the situation with the Bengals, and now you have all these guys who you spend all this money on to shore up your offensive line, and you managed last year to get to the Super Bowl with the poorest of offensive lines. Now they're starting to hurt, and you saw what could take place with that. Now, the Bills' defensive line can get to you, but they're not like the Commanders or a front like
Philly.
that. So I think that gives, or like the Eagles or something like that. So I think that lends to the idea that I would be more concerned about Josh Allen putting the Bengals in a position to succeed more so than Burrow has already shown that he can survive an onslaught of attacks.
I think you're right. I think that Cincinnati dealt with this a year ago. They can scheme it up a little bit. And I think no Von Miller in Buffalo, right? Like there's nothing that fearsome about that Bills D front. I mean, it's nice, but it's not game wrecker. So if Von was still there, that would be a little bit different. He's not.
Conversation, you're right.
Totally different. I think it's Allen. Allen has been incredible. It felt like last year towards the end he was limiting it. Now it feels like he's leaning right back into it.
Bad habits.
He's back into some bad habits. Yeah. And then finally, the Sunday night game, it's a great one for us old guys. My God, I mean, this was my youth. This is like Summer All Madden, and we get it 2 years in a row. Cowboys at 49ers. 49ers favorites in this one. The Cowboys question, can they stay hot as the spotlight gets brighter? The San Francisco question, is Brock Purdy finally due to hit a wall? One of these things I have no concern about. The other one, I'm not sure it would even matter. Which one of these do you think hits closest to home?
Well, you don't mess me up because now I got caught up in nostalgia thinking about the catch with Dwight Clark.
Oh, man.
Was it?
This is your youth. I mean, you lived this, man. I mean, this is Bay Area. Come on.
I was Bay Area. I saw it up close. And the crazy thing, when you go into the 90s Bowl, which was crazy because the 49ers owned the Cowboys in the 80s.
Yeah.
But when you get to the 90s, it was like the 49ers could beat the Cowboys, but the Cowboys couldn't beat the Packers. And the 49ers couldn't beat with the Packers. And
right,
it was like
all traded.
Back and forth right between those 3 teams throughout the 90s, getting the job done in the NFC. But ultimately, I think Purdy's good to go.
I do
the reason
too.
why I say that is that they're not asking him to do anything insane. Right now, they're asking him to be what? A game manager. Take what the defense gives you. Don't do anything elaborate. You're not in a position where we need you to take chances like a Josh Allen is doing. Just throw it to where we scheme you to be open. And what do they have on their side? They have one of the best coordinators. And granted, he would like to take back what took place against the Patriots in that Super Bowl, doing it for Atlanta as a coordinator. But I at least worry about the 49ers and Purdy. I would not be surprised if we see Purdy starting in the Super Bowl. And what imagine that type of story that's going to be from Mr. Irrelevant to possible Super Bowl MVP.
I mean, you live this with Brady. I mean, you can do it.
Yeah, it looks
he
very
wasn't
familiar.
Mr. Irrelevant, but I mean, he did it. You can. I just think right now Purdy's just doing exactly. He's Geppetto. I mean, he's a puppet on a string, and Kyle's pulling all the right strings. And I don't know if it's possible that it feels like we almost undervalued the McCaffrey trade to San Francisco because of I think McCaffrey's health. There was a play last week where they had Debo lined up at tailback behind Juszczyk. They had McCaffrey out wide. So it takes their individual skill sets to be able to do all of those things.
Right.
They put Juszczyk in motion. The defense shifts, so that tells Purdy what's coming. The entire operation, offensive line, Juszczyk, Debo, they all go like they're running a toss, right, to the left. The entire defense takes 2 steps with him. Purdy fakes it, turns around. He's got McCaffrey on a slant. Right, there's no one even there because everything they did manipulated it. And that type of stuff that Kyle's doing right now, I said this a couple of weeks ago on the show, Gerard, I think he's the one true genius in football right now, offensive football. I think it's Kyle. Everyone else has variations of it, but it doesn't matter who his quarterback is. Kind of doesn't matter who his running backs are. But when he has these running backs and he has these weapons, good night, nurse.
Right. And outside, and I agree with you. Only thing I would say is that I find Andy Reid to be on that same level from a
Fair
play design standpoint. But what you love about that play you just described, Bo, is the fact that he really created what's called an H angle, which normally takes place out of the backfield. He schemes it up so that the guy's isolated, sends everybody to that side as you just described, and now, okay, it's McCaffrey versus a one-on-one situation with either a linebacker or a safety in the open field. Who's going to win that?
Right. Yeah. But that's just it. So that you married the scheme within Debo and McCaffrey's individual talents, it's almost not fair. And we talked about the McCaffrey trade knowing that it was a good fit, but I don't even know if it got the full attention that it deserves because he was hurt all the time, you know?
Well, believe me, they will be looking at that play, and guess how many teams will be copying that play?
Oh, gosh, you'll see it. You may see it this week. All right.
Well, that's a telltale sign right there. When someone copies your play, you know you've done something special.
You did it right. That's right. All right, coming up next, we'll play a little Fact or Fiction. We will have the Tom Brady conversation with our good man, Gerard. You listen to Cleveland Browns Daily, brought to you by Ballybet, coming soon to Ohio on 850 ESPN Cleveland.
fly on the wall and listen to Bill Belichick and Nick Saban and Scott O'Brien and Kirk Ferentz and gosh, you name it. It was just unbelievable. And I was young. I didn't have a wife. I didn't have a family. I lived here at the office. And even though I have a degree from Georgetown, I got my degree in footballology. I mean, PhD in footballology from the Browns and from Bill Belichick.
Cleveland Browns Daily brought to you by Ballybet. Coming soon to Ohio on 850 ESPN Cleveland.
You guys ready?
Yep.
You are up.
And fans, mark your calendars. Face Up on the Lake, presented by Meyer, the first major outdoor hockey game at First Energy. It's February 18th, Buckeyes-Wolverines. Tickets on sale now, starting at just $12. For more information, visit firstenergystadium.com/faceoff or call 440-891-5050 on that. Time to play a little fact or fiction with my good friend Gerard Cherry here on Cleveland Browns Daily. Let's start with this one, Mr. Cherry. Personal
Fact or fiction?
Tom Brady will not be back with the Bucs next season.
I'm going to go fiction with that, Bo.
What?
Yes, fiction.
What?
I don't see him going to Vegas, and I'm putting personal reasons on it. I think the situation, obviously, we were all aware of the divorce, and that's troublesome in its own right, and that can definitely distract a guy. But if you're a family man, which he is, and your kids are going to be on the East Coast, I don't see him going to Vegas, though it makes the most sense to go there and hook up with Josh. Now, Miami could be an interesting scenario, but I don't know how that plays itself out because something tells me Lamar Jackson might end up in Miami.
Boy.
So, and the firing of Byron was probably, in some way, a way to appease Tom with some changes taking place with the offense. So, I'm going to say that he's going to stay put. So, fiction.
I'm going to go fact. I agree with you. You know him. I don't know him at all. I don't buy Vegas either for what you said. The only one that I thought maybe would be like, would he acquiesce for 1 year with the Niners? But I don't think that they would even need to do that at this point.
Right.
Like they've got answers already there. So I do think he'll play one more year. I'm not sure if it'll be Miami or wherever. I don't think it'll be in Tampa. I think it went really bad off the rails this year there. Do you think there's any chance he would go back to New England and finish?
No chance.
None.
No chance.
Done.
I think been there, done that.
Okay.
And the roster itself doesn't present an opportunity to win.
Yeah, it's tough. All right, next.
Fact or fiction?
Brandon Staley should not be the head coach of the Chargers next season. This is Gibby's.
Man. And we spoke earlier about the collapse and the arrogance and the, what was the other word you used?
Ignorance and arrogance.
Ignorance.
Both. It's weird that it's a hell of a lethal combination if you're both arrogant and ignorant.
Yeah, that'll get you killed. That'll get you
You're
fired.
Right. That's bad combo, buddy.
It certainly is. But I'm going to go ahead and say, Bo, much to my chagrin, fiction. He should not get fired. The reason why I'm saying that is if your quarterback's going to bat for you and you have a great relationship with your quarterback and you can push him, he understands you, he respects you, and all those things, that's the most important relationship on a football team. It's not owner, head coach. It's head coach, quarterback. Because ultimately, those are the guys who are going to have to make the decision of what's taking place and be the captain, be the leaders of the football team. So the fact that they have a great working relationship and that Herbert's backing him is the only reason I'm saying what I'm saying.
He probably never should have had the job. What happened Saturday is a fireable offense because they have a roster that's a win-now roster, and you can't waste years with win-now rosters. But I also knew that there was no chance he was going to be fired because I knew that ownership wasn't going to pay somebody not to coach, and that ownership wasn't going to pay somebody $20 million to coach him in Sean Payton. So that was all a ridiculous pipe dream. I mean, my God, Gerard, the L.A. Chargers pay rent to play football home games.
Right.
The Spanos family, they are not throwing money around, man. So, that ain't happening. So I knew that it wouldn't be the case. So it's absolutely, it's a fact he should not be. It's fiction that it was ever even considered. Next.
Fact or fiction?
Daniel Jones has been the key to the Giants' success. Fact or fiction, Mr. Cherry?
Oh, fact. F-A-C-T.
Yeah.
Add an O-I-D on there for factoid. Because if you don't think he's not the key to it all, Saquon can only do so much. You can only be one-dimensional for so long, right, Bo? And get the job done. But having Jones playing at this higher level to where he can run, and also he's elevating guys who you've never heard of.
Yeah.
So, yes, I'm going to say Jones the past month has been playing actually the best quarterbacking in the National Football League if you look at the stats from a QBR standpoint.
Yep. Real quick. It does – I don't think we haven't mentioned this yet. The Ravens have moved on from Greg Roman as offensive coordinator. So
wow. Is that a sign that they might be changing their offensive philosophy?
There you go. That's the first thing I start to be curious
Lamar
about.
may be on his way to Miami.
Yeah, he could be. We'll get into more of that at the top of the hour. Yes, on Dan Jones. Fact. That's an easy one. Next.
Fact or fiction?
Brock Purdy could win the 49ers a Super Bowl. Fact or fiction?
Fact, because in order to win a Super Bowl, you don't have to have a quarterback playing out of his mind. What you have to have is a quarterback who can get the job done. When it is that 2-minute drive, he's delivering to the right guys. And when it is that third down necessary pickup, is capable of doing that. But he doesn't have to be Peyton Manning or Tom Brady. But I guess in this case, I'm asking him to
You're asking him to be
the
Tom.
early version of Tom Brady. And I think he can do that. He's showing signs of that. So I say fact, he can do it.
I'm going to go fiction on this one just because my hunch is they're going to see Kansas City. And
It's going to be a shootout.
that's tons. I mean, they can score a lot, but can you keep up with Mahomes and those cats? Which brings us to the final one. Next.
Fact or fiction?
The AFC Championship game will be played at Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta. So that for that to happen, of course, the Bills would have to beat the Bengals, and the Chiefs would have to beat the Jaguars.
Oh, man. I don't see the Bills beating the Bengals, so I guess fiction.
I'm with you. It got lost in all, and appropriately so, in the DeMar Hamlin stuff, but the fact that this game is going to take place Sunday in Buffalo is kind of crazy, because if this game had played out and Cincinnati won, the game would have been down in Cincinnati.
Cincinnati right now.
Yeah, and they didn't make this one a neutral site, and
Which they should have.
they should have. Cincinnati's not happy about it, as you can imagine. So, not that only goes so far, right? That emotional stuff, that only goes so far. Like, you got to execute. But no, I'm with you. I think that the AFC Championship game will be in Kansas City.
Yeah, but you don't at the same time, Bo, and I've seen this, like the 2007 Patriots, for example. These dudes were talking about tickets. I'm like, man, who cares if the Giants got better tickets than you guys?
Right.
Who cares? You can't
What are you worried about?
concern yourself about that. You got a chance to have a perfect record.
Yeah.
You're talking about tickets?
Isn't that something?
Yeah.
Like, even
Surprised,
in those moments.
Man. Even those moments. I'm like, man, all their family members were right behind their bench. I'm like, what do you want me to say, dog? Focus on the game.
Like going down is unequivocally the greatest team in the history of football versus where your family's seated at the Super Bowl. Sometimes that's what goes through a mind, I guess. All right, second hour coming up next. We will do a little guess. We got scores coming up, a special Thursday edition. We got some over-unders as well. We'll get a preview of the Eagles and the Giants from Dave Sparrow, a good friend of the program. He will join us coming up at 2:15 on that one, and also the matchups in the NFC at large. We've got some mailbag questions for you. We want to get to this Greg Roman hiring, or rather dismissal, in Baltimore as well. All of that and so much more. You listen to Cleveland Browns Daily, brought to you by Ballybet, coming soon to Ohio on 850 ESPN Cleveland.
forget most plays of the Super Bowl that I was with the Eagles. I'll forget just about every play in that game. But what I won't forget is that parade afterwards. It's indelible in my mind. I'll never forget it. And in my mind, there's only one place that would outdo that parade in Philadelphia. And we're here right now. So I'm really excited about getting to work.
Cleveland Browns Daily brought to you by Ballybet. Coming soon to Ohio on 850 ESPN Cleveland.
You ready?
Yep.
You were up.
All right, second hour here, Cleveland Browns Daily, brought to you by Ballybet, coming soon to Ohio. Bo Bishop, Gerard Cherry with you here for the final hour, as we were for the first hour. You heard Jim Schwartz talk about that Super Bowl in Philly. As he's talking, I'm thinking to myself, and it goes both ways, too. I mean, if Seattle runs the ball to Marshawn Lynch, then the Patriots don't have that Super Bowl. But there's also the two Giants ones are just crazy, the circumstances of those two losses. And that Philly loss was the same. The fact that, like, Nick Foles was that was going to happen. That Philly team was legit. But that run was storybook. The what-ifs on the Patriots run, it really could have been more. And, yeah, you could take one away, but it really could have been more. You could have maybe – I was at their first one, the one down in New Orleans, with the Vinatieri kick when everyone – I'll never forget listening to I was in the stadium and they had the Madden Summerall piped in and saying – Madden, I'm almost positive. I remember this pretty vividly. They got to, play for overtime here.
Right. He said that.
Yeah. Nope. Don't think so.
No, we're going to.
I think we'll go win it.
I think Bill felt that they were getting their momentum back, and when everything that we were doing was starting not to work, and I think time was running out, so he made the astute decision. And I would go as far as saying, as far as my time there, Bo, we start out that next year on fire, 4-0. But then we started doing all the things that teams unfortunately do. You start, as my mom would say, smelling yourself and believing that you're all that and then some, and you don't start doing the things necessary to stay at the top because you're getting everyone's A-plus effort. So we went on this losing streak basically in the middle part of the season, and then when we started to get back on track, it was down to us and the Browns of all teams for who was going to make the playoffs. And I believe we needed the Jets to win or something like that because it was no longer in our hands. The Jets did not come through. The Browns were in the playoffs and end up losing that playoff game, I believe, to the Pittsburgh Steelers. I could be wrong. But I do know this. Had we gotten the playoffs, I'm pretty certain I'd be a 4-time Super Bowl champion. I think
that's true. You forget about that one, right? I mean, that's how fragile these moments are, and that's what's so amazing about that run that you were a part of is to have at bats. Mm-hmm. To have consistent at bats and bites at the apple. That's all you ask for is to have those, and you had a lot of them. The bites at the apple are going to be very different in Baltimore as Greg Roman is out as offensive coordinator. It was said today that it was he's going to pursue other opportunities. I don't read it that way at all. This could be jumping to conclusions, but that's what we do in Sports Talk Radio. It feels to me like we're going to change in direction of the way we play offensive football.
Right. It makes all sense in the world because you do not no organization wants to be held hostage by one player. And I don't fault Lamar for the approach that he took because in a lot of ways I also blame Baltimore. One, you're having conversations with him about his worth. You should have said, you know what, Lamar, we're not comfortable with this conversation. Have someone represent you. And because you obviously overestimated what you thought the relationship was. And then you pay a guy who's not even been on their squad for an entire year in Smith, the highest paid linebacker of all time, and he hasn't been there for a year.
Yeah.
So imagine how Jackson's going to perceive that. He's been there the entirety of his career. So you went wrong in that regard. And then the other part simply is Lamar can simply be like, you know what? I am team doctor as well. I'm ruling myself out like he did this past weekend. You can't have that and maintain a winning culture. Harbaugh knows that. Ozzie Newsome knows that.
Yeah.
And the other guys who are about that culture, because it is a winning culture, they do that. Understand it can't be about one guy, and they may have to move on. They should move on, to be honest with you.
Everything you just said there that you laid out so eloquently, all of the things, the common denominator is the word trust. When trust is lost between an athlete and an organization or an athlete and a coach or vice versa, it's done, and you can't get it back. So you can act like it, but there's always kernels that are back there, and they can come back and they can franchise him and make him, but it's cooked, and maybe they realize that too. But that's a big move in our division in terms of what the trajectory, because that defense is a deal. It's a full day. And if they want to move in a more traditional style at quarterback, we know Derek Carr is going to be available. Who knows how else this thing could play out over the course of the next month or so. You go back to a year ago at this time, who did you think would be available, and then who ended up being available? It was kind of two different things. So we'll see what happens, but that's big news out of Baltimore. Speaking of coordinators moving on, the Buccaneers have fired offensive coordinator Byron Leftwich after 4 seasons with the team. Gerard, he went from a year ago being like, maybe this guy's going to be a head coach,
right,
to now jobless, done.
Right. Think about that.
Crazy.
Unemployed.
Life comes at you quick.
Yeah.
Feels like it had to happen. They were a bad football team this year. They really were.
The thing I don't get though, if it's this weird dichotomy in that, Bo. All right, he called a ton of. Now, was it him who said, you know what, Tom, I want you to throw like 600 times, or was it the fact that the running back
66 times Monday?
Oh, that was just Monday. Think about the entire guy in his late mid-40s throwing that many times in a football season makes no sense.
No,
for starters. So why not establish the run? So if he was making those calls, that I question and scratch my head like, okay, that makes no sense. So I get the firing because I think still though the major thing on that is, and I can't see Tom throwing someone on the bus, but maybe simply was, hey man, we're gonna try to go in another direction. You got somebody you like, and they went there with it. So we'll see, obviously.
Yeah. NFL announcing today there will be 5 games in Europe next season.
Are we one of them?
We are not. That would have been fun, right? Bills, Titans, and Jaguars designated home teams for the games in London, and then Chiefs and Patriots designated for the home teams for the games in Germany. So no European trips for us next year.
It's coming, man.
It's coming for sure. Yeah.
That league and that European league is, I give it 10 to 15 years, man.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to figure out some way to have teams.
You need a couple. You need 3. You need probably 4 over there in order to make it so that the travel would work.
Yeah, everybody's going to have to travel. And then obviously they're going to have extended times in which they're over here.
Yes.
And they just pretty much camp out on the East Coast for 2 or 3 weeks on the West Coast and vice versa. So the logistics, I'm already planning it out. I see it happening.
I agree with you. I think it's happening too. And Germany's ready for it. England's ready for it. So I don't think it's that hard to do. There's a ton of money in it, which drives all of this stuff. The thing that I was most excited about was the idea of Andy Reid in Germany eating and drinking. That feels like a win for everybody.
A quick story of Andy Reid.
Yeah.
I played for him with the Eagles.
Yeah.
And I never understood that because I got to the team like the 3rd or 4th game of the season. And I'm like, why is this dude always talking about hamburgers? In particular, let's go out there, guys, and get some cheeseburgers.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is the wackest go out there, get ready for a game speech I've ever heard in my life. Let's go get some cheeseburgers.
Yeah.
So it just goes to show you do not have to be Newt Rockne in order to be very successful as a head coach.
So that's why that was so special when they gave him the cheeseburger at the end of the season this year and that clip that went viral. He's been saying that for 20 years.
Yeah, cheeseburgers. I don't get it.
That's so funny.
I don't get it, though.
Oh, that's great. Rams defensive tackle Aaron Donald indicates he's not retiring this offseason per his response to Peter Schrager. I'm playing, never said I wasn't. Also, I heard Chris Long, who knows Aaron from when they were both with the Rams, saying that he wouldn't be surprised if he played in Pittsburgh or Philly, which leads me to believe that he's going to try to get his way out of L.A., which would make sense for everybody.
Yeah, well,
I don't need him. I do not want him in Pittsburgh.
No, we did.
Good God.
Oh, gosh, no,
him and Cam Hayward.
We don't
want
want that smoke.
Good Lord. No.
Yeah, that would hurt our feelings
Oh.
and Watson's. But yeah, man, I don't want him to retire because I love the commercials that he's involved in. You see that one with Aaron?
Aaron, that's good. Very, very good. Steelers offensive coordinator Matt Canada will return to the team in 2023. The team
that surprised me, but it didn't.
Me too. I would agree with that.
Because the Steelers don't do that. They don't fall into that type of pressure. They stick with their guys.
They do. Let's follow. Let's do a couple of quick Axe CBDs. This from Jersey Dog. What speedy wide receiver should the Browns side trade for? I mean, there's not a lot out there in free agency.
Yeah, it's not an impressive group of candidates.
No, and I also and we're gonna do it because it's what we do. But when we start projecting like the 42nd pick in the draft, I mean that's tough. That's really tough to be able to do. So there'll be a guy in the draft, and they need to hit on it. It's something that they need. My hunch would be that it will be easier to pursue defensive line and tackle via free agency, and easier to pursue the receiver in the draft.
Yeah, from a quality standpoint, you're probably right, Bo. But here's the thing about receivers: you can find a guy in the 5th, 6th round.
Yeah.
Hey, okay, I'm not asking you to run every route the way Amari Cooper does, But can you get deep? Can you beat guys off the line of scrimmage? And can you blow the top off of a coverage? And do you run under a 4-4 with your shoulder pads on?
That's an important part of it. Yeah, you need
if
that.
you can do that, might work. You can make this thing work.
That's a requirement. Absolutely. This from John Clee. He says, "What's your go-to sandwich? Do you have a go-to sandwich, Gerard?"
Oh, my man, they must know me because I am the sandwich king. I make a sandwich out of everything, Bo. You give me 2 pieces of bread, it could be meatloaf involved or whatever. I can make a spaghetti even. I can make a sandwich out. But if I was to say my go-to sandwich, one that I like, I have to give you 2, dog. I'm sorry. I love sandwiches as much. This is a serious topic for me.
I got
it's
my
gonna
pen.
It's going to be the Cuban.
Yep.
And you can do a variation with that. You can sometimes substitute the ham with roast beef.
I like it.
And also, nothing is better than a club, man. A club sandwich. Classic club with bacon, lettuce,
yeah, that's
tomato.
So I'm hungry for all of it now.
Toasted just right with mayo and cool lettuce.
Oh, it's such a win. It's funny. As you were going through all of that, and the first my favorite sandwich that I've ever had, and I only get them at Publix Sub in Florida. The roast beef sub with
fire.
Oh my
God!
Had
it. Have you had the meatball sub there?
Yep, they're all home runs. I mean, the Publix sub, it's a different level.
I go to that grocery store just for lunch when I'm in South Florida or in Florida in general.
Straight there. Where's the fire of Subway? Yeah, we do the roast beef with the onions, tomatoes, salt, pepper, vinegar, oil, and just a little mayo. It's simple, but I don't know what it is, but it's perfect. Real quick, this one from Drew Dutton from the Yellowstone Dutton Ranch. He says, "Thanks for doing it." You're welcome, Drew. Happy to help. He said, "If you had to drink one soup for all your hydration needs for the rest of your life, what would it be?"
One soup.
Yeah, that's easy. There's
hydration needs.
My guys at Aladdin do it's called a V9. It's really good veggie soup, and I feel like I could just eat that forever and be ultra healthy. So there you go, Drew.
How many times have you been to California? You might be familiar with this
lots.
place.
Yeah, I was married out there. We're out there a lot.
All right, so this is a spot called Anderson's. It's in the Grapevine. They have this split pea soup.
Oh,
that is some of the best.
We got it shipped to us. Gerard, they shipped us cans.
That, huh?
Oh yeah, they shipped us.
Yeah,
we were talking about it. Yeah, they shipped it. It's amazing.
Yeah,
fantastic. Great question, young Drew, from out west. All right, coming up next. Eagles insider Dave Spadaro joins us to preview the Giants and the Eagles. That's coming up next. We'll get you the scores, the over-unders coming up as well. You're listening to Cleveland Browns Daily, brought to you by Bally Bet. Coming soon to Ohio on 850 ESPN Cleveland. All right, welcome back into Cleveland Browns Daily, brought to you by Ballybet, coming soon to Ohio. Bo Bishop, Gerard Cherry with you here on a Thursday edition as we head out on the hotline, the Twisted Tea Hard Iced Tea Hotline. In fact, it's the official sponsor of your Cleveland Browns. Keep it twisted. Cleveland, our good buddy Dave Spadaro joining us, of course, to preview the Giants and the Eagles. He is the Eagles insider. We was here at camp. We talked to him then. It was a lot of fun. Your team delivered. Ours did not. I guess before we get to Schwartz and all the rest of it, what has this ride been like with this Eagles team? You talked in camp. You were high on them, Dave. I remember talking to you in camp, how high you were on them. Did they exceed at their best what you thought they would be, or did you think this was all in play this season for them?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think they really. I mean, when you win the 14 games in the regular season, I'm not sure anybody really sees that necessarily coming. I thought it would be a really good team. I think the feeling right now, guys, honestly, is that it's you know, there's so much more to accomplish. So I can't really say that they've accomplished what I expected them to, because when you go into a season and you know you have a good team, and I think I've been around long enough to see a really good team in the making, that you expect more. So it is a very good football team. They're really deep. The way that Howie Roseman has bolstered the roster throughout the season, I mean, made such a huge difference, and the way the quarterback grew into a legitimate MVP candidate who just, I mean, answered every single question. I think there's more ahead here for this football team. Certainly to this point, it has been impressive, and there were times when you just kind of like watched them in like a video game, and the way they score points and the big plays and domination. And so all in all, I mean, I think that it's certainly probably the best regular season I've seen, and that includes 2004, which is an outstanding team, 13-1 before they rested their regulars. T.O. got hurt at the end of the season there. 2017 really dominated. Carson Wentz got injured late in the season. They kind of struggled down the stretch, as this team did. So there's similarities there. But I think all in all, this is probably the best regular season Eagles team I've seen.
And Dave, thanks again for joining us. And I've been saying this ad nauseum because I'm a big guy on preseason training camp, and I'm convinced that one of the reasons why this football team has done so well this season in particular is how they approach training camp, and that they were like men on mission, that they were gone constantly. And obviously, there's ladies in the organization as well, but the organization itself, you go to one place, you practice. You go to another place and practice. And how they approach training camp, can you give us some more insight on that? Because I've been preaching to that we need to take that approach of practice against who you can practice, since the games itself doesn't take on that grave of meaning because of the shortening of it.
Yeah, it's so interesting because over the years, obviously, training camp has changed. And there are times, frankly, when you go, and certainly when veterans, former players come back and they stand on the sidelines and they watch training camp these days, they go, what in the world is this hour and 40-minute practice?
Right.
Why isn't anybody getting tackled? Why isn't there, blood on the field? I think the joint practices are tremendously valuable. And in fact, I still recall and bring to light things I saw in the practices against the Browns. For example, those practices really brought to some, like when you blitz the Eagles, what's the answer going to be? So we saw in the first game of the regular season, the Lions blitz the Eagles. The answer is Jalen Hurts takes off and runs, and that backs off the blitz. And then when Jalen wasn't in the lineup for a couple games, and Dallas and then the Saints put pressure on the backfield, Gardner Minshew didn't have that ability to take off and run, so it really stymied the offense. But I think that practicing and remember, the Eagles were in Cleveland and then Miami, back to back. So we came home for like 36 hours, and it was a really good time to bond. It was a very taxing time because, frankly, at the end of that Miami trip and the preseason finale was just a disaster. The Eagles got blown out by the Dolphins, but by the end of that, everybody was like, "Let's get the heck home. This is too long away." But I think it really did pay benefits that you have seen throughout the season. And they did. The Eagles practice. It's a very concise practice. It's a very intense practice. It's actually more of an emphasis on fundamentals, and you see in the playoffs things like, ineligible man downfield penalties and pre-snap penalties and things that you would practice in a training camp environment that have come back to bite teams that maybe aren't as kind of pay attention to the details like this team has. And one area that I'll really emphasize here is that, giveaway takeaways throughout the season, the Eagles were far and away the best in the NFL in that category, in the turnover category, plus 15 at one point this season. Now, down the stretch, they really struggled. A tough game in Dallas with Minshew, tough game against New Orleans with Minshew. They finished at a plus 8. So it's still okay, but you saw how much they struggled in games where they gave the football away. Washington, lose. Dallas, 4 turnovers, lost. Big turnover against the Saints, pick 6, lost that game. So those kind of things are something they work on, rep, emphasize in training camp and in practices, which are no longer the 2.5, 3-hour practices that we enjoyed so much as fans in the good old days. Now it's get in, get out, but make sure the work matters.
Well, the work was put. I mean, as soon as you guys got off the bus, it was like, and you saw the defensive line. I remember thinking like, okay, this is a different look here. I mean, so you knew that was going to be the case. But I remember asking you this, Dave, in camp, saying, well, what do you make of Hurts? Like, is he really? It was a fun first season. Is he ready to elevate into something special? And boy, did he ever. So, two-parter. What's his health going to be like for Saturday? Is he all the way back? And then the second thing would be, how did he transform into – I mean, he might not win the MVP. It'll probably be Mahomes, but he's probably going to be the second pick. That's a remarkable thing for a kid who, coming out of Alabama, a lot of people didn't know if he even had a future at quarterback.
Yeah, I would say that from, first of all, from the health standpoint, he's fine. He's off the injury list. So, that's an indication that I think you'll see Jalen Hurts be Jalen Hurts on Saturday night against the Giants. Now, is he all the way back? I mean, there's still – pain that he's got to deal with in the shoulder, but I don't think there's any concern. Look, I mean, he's still got to get down when he's running. He's still got to get out of bounds, avoid hits. But in the finale against the Giants, I mean, there was almost an edict. Do not run. Do not put yourself in jeopardy. Let's figure out a way to win this game against the Giants backups with a half an offensive scheme, and do not get hurt. So he didn't run. But in this game, on Saturday night, I think you'll see him. If there's running lanes, he'll take them. I mean, this is playoffs. You win or you go home. There's no holding back, and I don't think Jalen will hold back at all. And I think from a throwing standpoint, he's perfectly fine. I think one thing that really has happened with Jalen, look, I mean, there's a lot of pieces around him, so I'll give a lot of credit to what the Eagles have put around him. Great offensive line, good running game, outstanding receivers and tight end. Jalen has worked extremely hard on his mechanics. He gets rid of the football much faster. Second year in the system, we talked about it back in the summer, means a ton. This is the first time since high school that he's been in the same scheme for 2 straight years. So he gets to learn the second year of the language, and he's been much more decisive, much more understanding of the concepts, where to go with the football, throwing to spots. He just really is in command when he's on the field. He's always been unflappable, but there's an element last year where, well, I'll make a read, and if it's not there, I'm going to run. He doesn't do that anymore. He's certainly much more patient in the pocket, but he's much, much faster in his decision-making. I think that makes a huge difference. And I think, like with you guys, Deshaun Watson, like he comes back after basically missing 2 seasons. What do you expect from him? Well, you're going to see a totally different quarterback next year because he's in his system for a second year. He's playing for a second straight year, and it becomes natural instead of working through it and kind of like thinking before you play. With Jalen this year, it was very, very instinctual, and you saw a quarterback playing at a high, high speed.
And, Dave, you give me an excellent segue because speaking of seeing another quarterback, I think you're going to see another quarterback, a different one that is, in Daniel Jones, because I don't think he's the same guy that you played against the first time around for sure, but he seems like he has elevated his game tremendously. Have guys in that locker room and the coaches as well taking note of how Daniel Jones for the Giants is playing at a higher level?
Oh my gosh, yeah, and one really great perspective comes from James Bradbury, who was a cornerback with the Giants for 2 years. The Giants released him. He comes to the Philadelphia Eagles. He becomes a second-team All-Pro. He's had an outstanding season. And in New York, there were injuries on the offensive line, and Daniel Jones took major hits and was banged up, and they really didn't have the weapons. Wide receivers hurt, and so the Giants didn't pick up his 5th-year option, and there was a lot of, Daniel Jones will never be that guy. And Bradbury told me yesterday that he was always very respectful of Jones, who kept his mouth shut, who worked really hard, who sat in the front of the room taking notes. You could see the talent. He was a tough guy. They just didn't have. They really just didn't play to his talents. It was kind of like trying to fit this offense without the pieces. And now what I think the Giants have done, and what the players and coaches here certainly understand, is they have built an offense around the skills that they have, around his mobility, around Saquon Barkley's dual threat ability as a running back and as a receiver. And Daniel Jones, I mean, my gosh, the way he played in Minnesota, 300 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, 78 yards rushing, a record in the NFL for postseason quarterbacks on the ground. I mean, tremendous performance, tough guy. Eagles know that he's going to run a ton of bootlegs. He's going to try to get outside the pocket. They're going to have designed runs. He's going to keep plays alive with his legs. The defensive linemen are dreading this chase that they're going to have on Saturday night. And by the way, he's got a huge arm with some receivers that he really trusts. So it is a totally different quarterback, a totally different team, and the Giants have done a great job under Brian Dable of turning things around very quickly.
Dave, I'll get you out of here on this one. Jim Schwartz introduced here yesterday. He was at the top of the list over here. They made the hire in short order. You're obviously very familiar. What can our fans expect out of a Jim Schwartz defense next season?
So Jim Schwartz, I think it's a great hire. I mean, he was so instrumental in the Super Bowl season for the Eagles. Even before that, when the Eagles were going through all these injuries in previous years, terrific, and in post years, of defense always keeping the team in games, takes the football away. Now, he will not blitz a ton, and the reason he doesn't blitz a ton is because he hopes he doesn't have to. And he's always relied on an outstanding front, in which the Cleveland Browns have. And if your front is winning, you will see coverages on the back end that mix a lot, that work very well in tandem. You're not going to see a lot of busts or big plays. Look, in Philly, if you don't blitz it, Philadelphia is so in love with what Buddy Ryan did 100 years ago. I mean, even today, Jonathan Gannon gets a ton of criticism because he doesn't blitz enough. Well, the Eagles are like one of the top 3 defenses in the NFL, and for some Eagles fans, that's not enough. And a team that took the football away, I think it's at a rate of the 3rd most in the NFL. So team, if you're expecting Jim to blitz a lot, it's not going to happen. He really relies on a great front four, very sound defensively, excellent communicator. You're going to have great leadership. They're going to be tough. I think he's a great fit for Cleveland. Not surprised at all that his quote-unquote retirement didn't last because Jim is a football junkie and is a really, really cerebral guy, interesting guy. I love the man. I think he's extremely fun guy to deal with. And as a coach and in press conferences, the fans, you'll get great answers. You'll hear a lot of football-ese. He'll speak it like it is. He will be very tough on his players. And if you can build a good front, if you're really happy with your front, then the rest will follow. And I know Cleveland has a lot of pieces on defense. I know there were several injuries that were really key. And look, Jim's not going to give up big plays, but he's going to produce a lot. You're going to get a lot of sacks. And I just think your defense is going to take a big jump forward. I really believe in Jim Schwartz. I was very surprised when he said he was going to step away from the game. Now, not surprised at all that he was with Tennessee last year. Good defense there until injuries took apart that defense. And ready to go in Cleveland, and I think you're going to really enjoy Jim Schwartz as your coordinator.
Dave, we always enjoy every bit of time you give us. Thanks for giving us a little bit of it today, and good luck this weekend to the Eagles. Should be a fun one.
Hey, thank you so much, and maybe we'll see you next summer. Maybe you guys will be coming to Philly. Who knows?
We'd love to. I'd love to do it. That'd be a ball. That'd be great. Thanks, man.
All right, guys. Thank you. Take care. Have a great weekend.
All right, that's Dave Spadaro. He's the best, man. On the Twisted Tea Hard Iced Tea Hotline, official sponsor of your Cleveland Browns. Keep it twisted, Cleveland. We'll hit the over-under game. We'll do a Thursday edition of the Scores coming up as well. You'll listen to Cleveland Browns Daily, brought to you by Ballybet, coming soon to Ohio on 850 ESPN Cleveland. Welcome back into Cleveland Browns Daily, brought to you by Ballybet, coming soon to Ohio on 850 ESPN Cleveland. Bo and Gerard with you, as we have been for the first hour and a half of this program. Joined now on the hotline by Gibbe. Gibbe, you could play golf here today. It's sunny and like 50.
Really?
Oh, yeah. I'm sure yours is better.
But no. Well, it would be. The clubs are not here yet. I'm still they'll come tomorrow, but that's okay because just a lot to do, just opening up the in-laws establishment down here and dealing with a little bit of hurricane damage. So
everything okay?
But yeah, we're getting there. I'll tell you what, there's a lot of people down here, and not to start off all serious, but there's a lot of people down here that still need a lot of help. And I think that people, for about a week, it's top of mind, and then it kind of goes away. But there's people living on the beach down here in tents that they don't have anywhere else to go.
Wow.
Yeah, you're right.
It's pretty.
I got really
it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, we are so ADD as a society now. Like something happens and we're on to the next thing, and it's like, well, they're still living it and have been for a long time. Absolutely brutal there. On a lighter note, how close you sent a text?
The lighter note.
You and Hoff and Z and myself are on a text chain, and as you were describing, like my night was very different as we're knee deep in flu grossness, and coming out the other side of it. And your night to me felt a lot like Kramer's at Del Boca Vista. In Seinfeld, it felt like you were Kramer, like you were like living your best life in the Del Boca Vista community. I mean, the DD, like the whole operation felt like a win for me and you.
Well, it was, and we hadn't even gotten to the old homestead. We hadn't even gotten to the compound where everything, the gated community. Like we got off the plane, and by the time we got the rental car and everything, it was like almost 5 o'clock, and no one had really eaten all day. So it was like, all right, where can we find a spot? And we found this dive, this little dive bar halfway between the airport and we're probably 25 minutes from the airport. Found a spot for dinner, and we were sitting outside just enjoying the night. Some guy walked in and goes, "You guys want to play bingo for drinks?" And I'm like, "Yeah, of course I do."
Yes, we do.
And yes, we're the youngest people here, but that's great. Perfect. Let's go thrive.
Absolutely amazing.
I had I was playing 3 different bingo cards, one about 4 drinks. The in-laws had themselves a night. I had to cut it off.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the 4 of us would have been in a nice little Uber. But a good time had by all, and some fantastic comedy from the guy running the bingo table that I feel like went over the heads of the majority of the people in the crowd, except for my wife and I.
You guys caught it. Yeah. You guys were the demo.
And I'll say this, like in a couple weeks, you'll be down here, my friend, and it'll be good.
Yeah, but we'll see.
I know this week has not exactly been ideal for you. Are you feeling better?
I'm fine. It hit my wife last night. It has been the most – it was unbelievable. It's like a 36-hour thing. The first 24 are brutal death, and then the next 12 you start to come out of it a little bit, but it's hit. So it was Bootsy Saturday, Beamsy me Monday, Beamsy Tuesday into Wednesday, and then my wife last night. So NBC has survived somehow, the 11-year-old, but I'm not optimistic, that he's going to be – so far he's in the clear. I don't know how.
Well, and I was telling my wife about it, and she's like, yeah, that's that bug going around. Better be careful because it's gone back around a second time. And I'm like, I don't think he wants to hear that.
No, you're right. I don't. Gerard and I have been talking about this a lot. So Greg Roman out as the offensive coordinator in Baltimore. John Harbaugh saying at his press conference today, Eric DeCosta's there as well, the GM. Lamar Jackson will be involved in the search for the team's new offensive coordinator. Always take all of this with a grain of salt, but I do think that that's pretty straightforward from an organization that doesn't seem to do anything other than be straightforward. Gerard, what do you make of that?
Well, I make of it, again, if you have a situation where if you're going to fire a guy who's pretty much been designated as creating an offense for Lamar Jackson, look at all the backups. Who do they look like?
Yeah.
Lamar Jackson.
Right.
And so what are you going to do with that skill set for a guy who knows how to employ that? So with that in mind, Gibby and Bo, I'm thinking that this may be a true sign that they're saying, Lamar, you're about to exit and something's going to happen, because I don't think good organizations and franchises let one player hold them hostage. I mean, even the Patriots said bye to Tom Brady.
Yeah.
Well, and Gerard, I would tend to agree with you. I mean, let's look at the Arizona Cardinals.
Right.
You know, they fire Cliff, the GM steps down, and the owner's like, yeah, the quarterback's going to help us pick our next coach. And I'm like,
What?
I don't think that's a great idea by any stretch. That guy's busy playing video games.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, what are we doing here?
And why would you empower him of all the people?
Yeah, by the way, the offense, it was not Greg Roman's fault. The star quarterback hasn't played in December in 3 seasons.
No. Yeah, it's tough.
I mean, there's something else going on there, and it needs to be addressed sooner rather than later. And, Gerard, you and I talked about it on Tuesday. All the better for us.
Right.
Good.
Yeah.
Let them be in turmoil.
Exactly. And also, too, like Wink Martindale getting fired by the Ravens. I was like, what was that all about?
Yeah.
What did he do wrong? So if this is how they're going to play, let them play this way. Now, granted, they still found a way to make it to the playoffs, even letting coaches go. But at some point, it's going to have to collapse. You keep doing it this manner of fashion.
All right, boys, we got a lot to get to here.
Yeah.
We got to get to some over-unders first, and then we'll get to the scores. So let's hit the – do you have more,
So,
Gibby?
am I hearing is Zagura too good to make an appearance right now?
This is you said it. I mean, there's not evidence to the contrary.
I hope he's Shankopotamus today. I hope his buddy's taking all his scratch.
So, all right, over-unders first. Last week, Zagura went 5-1, Gibbe 3-2. So Zagura's lead over you is grown to 3, but the Hoff went 0 for 5er.
Ooh.
So he's
again.
Yeah, it's like a 1 for 14 stretch for him right now after getting all the way to the top. So it's a 2-horse race, and you got a lot of work to do. But Zagura won't be able to play off you, so that's a win. So let's start with this. All right, Gibbe, first one for you. Saturday quarterbacks touchdowns accounted for. So that's rushing touchdowns 2 versus Sunday quarterbacks touchdowns accounted for. So just for clarification, you get Jacksonville, Kansas City, Giants, and Eagles, or Bengals, Bills, Cowboys, 49ers. Saturday, over or under?
I'm going to go with Sunday. Now, what happens if Philly's got to go to a backup quarterback? Does that count into that?
It doesn't matter.
It's
any quarterback. It's not Hurts. It's any quarterback.
Okay.
Under. Gerard.
All right. I'm taking Sunday. Welcome to the madness, Gerard.
I'm like, that was a lot. I'm still trying to follow the question. I'll just say Saturday.
Yeah.
All right, so Gerard's got Saturday. All right, so you went over. Next.
He's our celebrity picker today.
That's right.
Or under.
All right, so you get Mahomes and Jones passing yards versus Burrow and Allen passing yards, Gerard.
Oh, I'm going Mahomes and Jones.
Gibbe?
I'm going Allen and Burrow because I think they're both going to throw till their arms fall off.
Next.
Over or under.
Total yardage, McCaffrey and Debo. Over under, Pollard, Zeke, and CeeDee Lamb, Gibbe. Or no, this one's to Gerard. No, this one is to you, Gibbe. This is to you, Gibbe. Sorry, my fault. McCaffrey and Debo, or Pollard, Zeke, and CeeDee.
I'll go the 49er duo because if one of the Cowboys backs is playing, the other one is watching. So I'm going to go that route. I'm going to go 49ers combo.
Gerard?
I am going to go with the Niners as well.
Over. All right, very good. Next.
Over or under.
Sacks, interceptions, and fumbles, AFC total accounted for. Over, under, NFC total accounted for.
Gerard, just for reference, I've gotten this right. Did I get this right last week?
You did not.
Once
there
in
we go.
2 years. Gerard, yeah. I've gotten 2 in 3 years.
So what were you going to say so I can go against it?
Was it sacks, interception, fumble Saturday versus Sunday?
No, it's AFC, NFC.
NFC.
NFC is the NFC over or under the NFC.
I'm going to go NFC over the AFC.
AFC. I was going to go that way anyway, AFC, so thank you.
So you got AFC, Gerard?
Yes, I got AFC.
Next.
Over or under.
All right, finally, last one. NFC total points scored versus AFC total points scored. Gibbe? NFC over or under AFC points scored.
God, and I don't know what the weather is going to be in any of these locations this weekend.
I don't think it's anything crazy.
No. I think I'm going to go AFC. I think that Bills-Bengals game is going to be a shootout, and I think Kansas City could put a hurting on Jacksonville.
All right, so you got over. Jerron?
I'm going AFC as well.
All right, so you're going under. You're going over as well. All right, very good. All right, we've got like 2 minutes. We got 90 seconds to do 4 games on the scores, Gibby. How do you want to do this?
Start it off. 4
Jaguars
o'clock Saturday.
at Chiefs Saturday, 4 o'clock. Jaguars. Do we do the line? You do it, and then I'll answer it because I forget how you do it.
It's Jacksonville visiting Kansas City.
Yes.
I don't know what's going to happen with Jacksonville. Is Jacksonville for real? We're going to find out. Bo Bishop.
Chiefs 38, Jaguars 28.
Wow.
Gerard.
Chiefs 27, Jaguars 13.
Same.
We go to Saturday night foosball, and the number 1 seed in the NFC East, the Philadelphia Eagles, open their bid for the Super Bowl, hosting the New York Football Giants. Daniel Jones, fresh off a big win. Gerard, what say you?
Eagles 24, Giants 17.
Oh, I like that one a lot.
Bo Bishop.
Eagles 21, Giants 19. I could see the Giants sneaking this one, though. I could.
Wow. It all comes down to Hurts. All right. To Sunday we go. God hoping my flight is on time. I can go right to the bar. It starts at 3 o'clock. It is Buffalo hosting the Bengals. The Bengals got screwed. It should have been a neutral site game, and everybody knows it. Bishop.
It's too big. I think Bengals win this outright. I think it's a great game. Bengals 31, Bills 30.
Ooh. Gerard.
I'm going to go Bengals 35, Bills 31.
Yeah, same.
Finally, Sunday night, 6:30 game, I believe, on Fox.
It
2
is.
minutes. 2 minutes.
Niners, the number 2 seed, hosting the Dallas Cowboys. Gerard.
49ers 24, Cowboys 10.
Same. Yeah, Niners big, 31-17, something like that. Good job of you, Gibby. Keep it between the navigational beacons. So much more to come. You listen to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850. Oh, what do you want me to do? Yeah, we're good? All right. Cleveland Browns Daily, 850 ESPN Cleveland. Ron, thank you so much for sitting in with me today, buddy. Had a ball. Thank you for your time, bud.
Well, thanks for having me, and it was always a pleasure.
Always is. The next level is coming up next. We are off tomorrow, back on Monday, right here on Cleveland Browns Daily. Brought to you by Ballybet, coming soon to Ohio on 850 ESPN Cleveland.